Welcome back to another episode of the Wild Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Finnig. I'm so excited you're here with me today. Today's guest advanced through rigorous training for practicing acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, and after studying for over 3,200 hours and seeing over 1,000 hours of patients in California, she continued her studies in China at the Chengdu University Hospital, where she earned a certificate in international medicine awarded by the Chinese government's Department of Medicine. Since that time, Erica Siegel has opened and continues to operate 2 successful practices in Indianapolis. In fact, one is a community clinic that offers a sliding scale, making this Eastern modality accessible to the community she loves to serve. She's also worked on research studies using acupuncture for post-breast cancer symptoms, alongside physicians in various hospitals and highly regarded acupuncturists in private practice. I can't wait for my friend Erica to share her deep knowledge of these ancient practices with all of you today. And if you're driving right now or taking me along on your walk, don't worry, because as always, there'll be links to everything we discussed today at alyssafinnig.com/podcast. One more thing before we dive in. This episode is sponsored by my upcoming 8-week Wild Wisdom Yoga Therapy program beginning in January. If you're ready to try a new holistic approach to address the root cause of your chronic pain, anxiety, depression, or habitual patterns that you're ready to let go, and finally get back to living the life you desire, you'll want to join me for this incredible program using yoga, pranayama, meditation, and chakra balancing to align your body, mind, and spirit. Go to alyssafinnig.com/online program to learn more. I won't make you wait any longer, so let's go ahead and dive into today's exciting topic. Hi, Erica. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. So I always like to start just maybe a little synopsis of, how'd you get into acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine?
Sure. So I grew up in a household with a mother that was pretty much a health nut. And so I was exposed to healthy living and choices as a young person. I also started seeing chiropractors as a teenager and sought holistic cures for things that I was going through, and so it was a natural movement for me to go towards holistic medicine.
Sure. Well, and tell me, I introduced you, so a lot of people know about your experience now, and I've actually come to you as a client and come to both your private practice and your community clinic, and I love your knowledge. And of course, we're friends, so we've talked otherwise and that too. But tell me, a little bit about what drew you to traditional Chinese medicine, to acupuncture, and then how you just dove right in.
Sure. Mm-hmm. So growing up, I initially thought that I was going to be some sort of designer or architect. And so towards the end of my schooling, which also included things in my undergrad, I studied a lot of Eastern religion and theory and thought, and I was really attracted to things like Taoism and Buddhism, and so it was a natural progression for me to then study feng shui, which was my first trade. Mm-hmm. And so I got to dabble in that kind of design aspect, but also looking at the theory and philosophy behind Chinese medicine. Mm-hmm. So then once I was really into feng shui, I started looking at other Chinese modalities as well. I said, you know what, I think I'm going to look into more body work things. And I started studying acupressure. And once I moved out to California, I was near a school for acupuncture that was, renowned and a good one. So it was just a natural movement for me to go, acupressure, let's go a little farther. And, I was ready to get back into academics. And so going into a more rigorous program was attractive to me.
Yeah. Well, I had no idea you started with feng shui.
Yeah, that was my first trade.
And that's so funny because I grew up wanting to be an architect or graphic designer. I actually started college when I went to Purdue for graphic design. And then I was like, I'm creative, but not that creative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with architecture, I really liked the design aspect, but the engineering part of it, I wasn't so sure that I was going to be able to handle that. Mm-hmm. So I didn't go forward with that.
Yeah, well, great. Mm-hmm. So let's tell our audience, and we have a worldwide audience, so tell our audience about little basis, Taoism, traditional Chinese medicine, how that fits in, how acupuncture fits in, or anything else that you want to share. Maybe just a little overview.
Well, Chinese medicine really started with kind of a Taoist background. If you look back at the beginnings, you find the I Ching, which is the Book of Changes. And from that book, which I think is from about 800 BC, it's very old. And from that book spawned really the whole underbelly of Chinese medicine. And also feng shui. So it really has the same beginnings. And there's actually 8 branches of Chinese medicine, and feng shui is one, acupuncture is another, herbology, which is kind of included in the schooling for acupuncture, is also kind of one of the modalities.
Sure. And I know you combine some. For someone who really has no idea what, because there may be I tend to attract people who have some kind of
knowledge.
Not necessarily in knowledge, but I see clients all the time, and when I try to explain Thai massage, I always say, have you had acupuncture? Because I'm like, Thai massage is a different way to manipulate the energetic body, and acupuncture is too with needles. But a lot of people say no. And I'm always shocked by that, because to me, it's like, oh, acupuncture is second nature. So maybe, just go in and explain a little bit more about acupuncture itself, or if you want to delve into Chinese medicine first, to explain to our audience if they don't know, or maybe they've kind of heard of it because it's been documented and is now evidence-based and things like that. But it's been around for thousands of years. And well, and before we go into that, I'll tell you a little story about when I was like, Chinese medicine and herbs, they are the real thing. I was in Shanghai and I had too much wine, which happens, and I had a headache on the left side. And my friends were like, we'll take you to the pharmacy. The pharmacy's different in China, right?
It is different.
And so I, on my phone in, English did the translation to Chinese and sinus stuff. And I can't remember exactly what they gave me, but
probably curing pills. So there's a hangover cure that's very popular in China called curing pills.
Okay. Well, they did something to clear my sinuses. It was whatever. I can't remember what it was called, but it worked.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't doubt if there was, whatever it was. I was like, hallelujah, I can go continue.
Beyond Pianas is a very classic sinus formula.
I feel like that might be part of what they gave me. But whatever it was, it worked in an instant and was amazing. And I'm like, okay, well, this works.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't stick around this long if it didn't work.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm still in awe of it every day. Yeah. It works on a huge majority of people. And so it's amazing. It really is. We have a whole network within our own bodies that we just have to tap into to heal ourselves.
Exactly.
And so, we tap into the meridian systems, which you could think of them like, different channels or, rivers running throughout your body. And they're kind of they're not right on the nerves. A lot of people think that, oh, acupuncture, you're tapping into the nerves. Well, you're tapping into the nervous system, but you don't want to actually put needles into the nerves. That does not feel good.
No.
It doesn't feel good. That feels like a zap, and we don't look for that.
Sure.
But there's points all over those channels that then communicate with the brain, and then the brain self-regulates however it needs to. So, if you have pain in a certain area, then, we may put a needle in that area, or we may put a needle in other areas that influence that area by then connecting to the brain. And, the brain then may release anti-inflammatory chemicals to help heal the area or help clean up any damage that is in that spot. So, so we really just tap into the body's ability to heal itself.
Well, I think all more of that Eastern any of the Eastern modalities, because I'll talk to people about Ayurvedic, Chinese, Thai,
Mm-hmm.
like they're all very similar and just they flourished in different countries and
Mm-hmm.
cultures.
Yeah.
But they're all designed the same way, is
Mm-hmm.
the body's ability to heal.
Yeah.
And, as a yoga therapist, it's the same approach, just different modalities, different techniques.
Mm-hmm.
So they all complement each other.
They do.
And I know we've had, you have clients who come for acupuncture and then come for yoga and,
Mm-hmm.
vice versa
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, because we send people to you.
Yeah.
And you need that integration.
It is.
Because different
it's
techniques.
very helpful to use more than one modality. It's like all these modalities are nice all on their own, but when you combine them, it's a much quicker process.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I know acupuncture there's a lot of studies at how it helps with pain. What about emotional issues, or
Yeah.
or imbalances and things like that, or other things have you seen?
Yeah, we treat a lot of people with, anxiety, depression issues are very prevalent in our
Yes,
society.
they are.
And yeah, there's a ton of acupuncture points that help to calm the nervous system down. So acupuncture, we know scientifically, does calm the sympathetic nervous system down and stimulates the parasympathetic. So that fight or flight really takes a back seat. And that's what most of us with anxiety need, is just to really bring the parasympathetic nervous system to the forefront and allow that to flourish. And it's not just during the treatment, but usually it lasts, anywhere from 2 days to a week or so. Beyond the treatment is that sympathetic is calmed down.
Because it's retraining the body. And that's why you do multiple treatments at first to, retrain, basically, and then get to spread them out later, just like with any other modality.
Yeah, any other therapy. Yeah. And also, if you look at the names of the acupuncture points, they have a lot of names that include, the mind and the spirit within the name, Spirit Gate, or Mind Mountain. So things that tell you that they're going to be helpful for psychological issues.
Sure, of course. So, that whole, and I talk about in yoga that the 5 layers of being. It's okay. We have phones that go off and things like that when we have podcasts. But the 5 layers of being: the physical, the energetic, the mental, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. And, Chinese medicine covers that too. And it's not just a yoga thing.
Right.
And it's just that it's in written down in the Panchamaya model of Ayurvedic medicine, but they're also similar.
Yeah.
And so, that's what I don't think people always realize, is that acupuncture goes beyond, and traditional Chinese medicine in general, because there's herbology and was it moxie and moxibustion and stuff,
and
not
cupping,
moxie,
yeah.
and cupping and all of that, which I've received. So
it goes beyond the physical.
Exactly. And that's what the whole intention of the podcast is to share that with people, that the physical symptoms are just manifestations of energetic imbalances, emotional imbalances, intellectual, spiritual imbalances.
And I think they're all entwined.
Yeah, they are.
There's not really, it's not really possible to separate out the mind and the body. And, when people have, let's say, physical pain for a long period of time, they often will have depression as well, because it affects your psyche, whether or not something starts somewhat physical or starts mental. It's really all entwined.
It is completely. I was reading Women Who Run with the Wolves is like my Bible. So I was reading it this morning a little bit, just some different things as I was cultivating some writing. And it was just, I happened to open to the section about, we treat our bodies like a slave. Like, you just do what I want you to do. And when you act up, like, I don't want to hear it. And then sort of, she didn't write that exactly, but that's basically the premise of it. It was sort of like, I don't want to hear it. And instead of like, we have a relationship, like, you're a living record, your body is. It's a living record, of what's
Every
happened.
moment.
Yes, every moment,
moment.
exactly. And so, you talked about the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system and how Chinese acupuncture specifically helps with that. Would you mind talking a little bit about cupping and moxibustion and how that,
Sure.
just as additional modalities all within the traditional Chinese medicine?
Sure. Yeah. Moxibustion. It's an herb that we tend to burn near the skin. And it penetrates the body easier than other herbs. That's why we use that one.
Okay.
And it helps to warm the channels, and it also helps to move. If there's stasis or stagnation in an area, it helps to move it. So it's very nourishing. It feels really nice. And then there's cupping as well, which is the use of suction cups. Most typically you see it over the back. You can do it really in most places on the body, but most typically you'll see it on people's backs or shoulders. And it helps to bring more oxygen into an area and help move blood stasis or stagnation out of an area. So you're pulling up, any, let's say, stuck blood that is in a tight muscle, right?
Sure.
If you have a tight muscle, let's say in your trapezius, the blood flow is going to get compromised and it's going to slow down.
Yeah.
And so we use a suction cup to pull that blood up out of the muscle layer. And it pulls up towards the surface, and then your lymph system flushes it out.
Okay.
And so it's like a self-cleaning mechanism.
Sure. Yeah.
And some people, do wet cupping where you actually lancet the area first and physically pull out the stuck blood.
Okay.
So kind of like the old bleeding
Yes, bloodletting sort of stuff.
Yeah. But it really helps people. So it looks bad because it leaves kind of hickey looking marks, but it doesn't feel bad. It feels really good. It feels like a deep tissue massage for a few minutes.
Yeah, I've had it, and and I think some people could maybe relate. I always think of the Olympic swimmers who were having cupping done, and it was like all the media was like,
they popularized
cupping?
it.
And so if people saw that you could see exactly what it is. But I've had it done, and it really helps. Sometimes even more than massage because of the way
it pulls up and out.
Pulls up and out and makes everything move. And it's the stagnation in especially my shoulders.
I think a lot of people are with you there. The shoulders are a place.
No, I'm not alone.
Posture is such an important thing. And you know that with the yoga therapy.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of people sit at computers and, we're all looking down at our phones. So it's...
Yes, I had to tell my niece the other day when we were driving, I'm like, you're going to get text neck.
I know. I tell my 7-year-old all the time, I'm like, you need to raise your head.
Raise your head up. Exactly.
Push on her back to sit up. I have a yoga friend, a colleague that I went to acupuncture school with, and she once told me that her teacher said the most important thing is to know how to stand in yoga.
Yeah, it is.
If you know how to stand, you know how to do yoga.
Well, and it's true. So, that's what we teach too. I mean, just in a different way. But Tadasana, mountain pose, like it's, my original teacher, Cindy Lee, always said it's the underpants of all your poses. I say it's the base layer or whatever. You can call it what you want, but that's where the alignment thing is. And you need it in all your poses. Yes. There's not absolutes like with alignment, what people have different structures and things like that. But if you can't stand. And some people could relate, like some of our listeners, if you're standing for a long time and your back starts to hurt, there's some alignment, there, or, it may be muscular or skeletal or something, or energetic that's just out of alignment. And because oftentimes, your back can hurt and it could be physical, but it could also be energetic. But you have to be able to stand, like the simple things.
Huge.
The simple thing, it is huge. So I know there's it's kind of a newer concept of dry needling out there, and I know there's not really or from what I gather, there's not really any scientific consensus or evidence base that it's necessarily helpful, but I know it's a thing, and a lot of people are incorporating it into their practice. You know, I'm not sure even who all is, but tell me what that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So dry needling is acupuncture being done in trigger points.
Okay.
So
Sounds like it would
so
hurt.
it's really just it's really just orthopedic acupuncture.
Okay.
So there is a sect of acupuncture that's just orthopedic acupuncture, and they use trigger points and use kind of more the physical structure of the body and not looking at the mind or spiritual side at all.
Okay.
And so it actually started with a company called Kineticore.
Oh, okay.
And they decided to train physical therapists in acupuncture, but for only 12 hours.
Oh, wow. Where you've had 3,200 hours
right.
or more.
Okay. And in most states, it's actually illegal for physical therapists to be inserting anything into the body. It's considered practicing medicine without a license.
Okay.
And there's been lots of cases of pneumothorax from that because they're going really deep and hard into the body. And so you can puncture a lung if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And they don't have, the training,
the
extensive training in clean needle technique or, how deep you can actually go with certain points. So it's been a public safety issue.
Really? Wow.
And it's one thing if you go and get extensive training, but if you're going for a weekend course and then doing acupuncture illegally under the name of dry needling. So Kineticore was very smart in their business plan. They're training a ton of people and making a ton of money, but they're also hurting a lot of people and doing things illegally. So it's sad. It's just one example of one modality trying to absorb another.
Yeah, well, and that happens, unfortunately. I know that happens sometimes with chiropractic too. And every modality, every profession has because even yoga therapy can have overlap with psychotherapy and physical therapy, but we can all work together.
Sure.
And I do work with a lot of healthcare professionals, and I'm sure you do too, in conjunction with them.
Yes.
But there are some who aren't open or think that, I toured some healthcare facilities yesterday, and some people were so excited, and then some people were like, that competitiveness, and it's sort of like, well, whatever. But there's going to always be some overlaps, but the expertise that everyone brings to the table, like, you can't know everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want acupuncture, go to someone that's been trained and in Indiana is at least nationally certified. Going to people that just don't have that much training in it, you're just not going to get the full experience.
Yeah. Well, and just like with yoga, if people don't know, they don't know. And I'm pretty sure I've told my Gold's Gym yoga experience on this podcast, so I won't say that again. But the same thing happens with yoga teachers, yoga therapists. My mission has been to educate people about what yoga therapy is. All yoga is very helpful, but yoga therapy is totally different. And, and that's just, I have to explain that. And that's part of the reason I have the podcast, because I interview a lot of yoga therapists. Yeah. But, I know acupuncture is licensed in Indiana and in most states, I believe, every state's different. But, and some people will do it under the table, and that all happens. I mean, some people pass themselves off as yoga therapists when they're not trained either and haven't gone through the 1,000 hours of training.
Yeah.
That happened the other day in a training I was in. Someone introduced themselves as yoga therapists, and I'm like, even if you're studying, you still don't have the certification yet.
Right.
And
so it's sad. You have to be smart about finding the right people to to help you with yoga, to help you with acupuncture, and
Well,
Yeah.
I
You just have
think
to be
even
diligent and, hold people accountable that you're working with.
yeah, I think even practitioners in general, and my friend Natalie, who's a clinical psychologist on I can't remember what episode number, but I'll link to it in the podcast or in the show notes. But she's a clinical psychologist, so she kind of has that whole same perspective. And it's one of the reasons why I created the podcast is to educate people.
Mm-hmm.
Because whether you're healthcare or a holistic practitioner or, whatever, you also have to find people who are actually caring, experienced, well trained, and doing it because they care about you, not for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because within every type of care profession, we're all human.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to, I've seen it.
Yeah. You got to watch out for, people that are just out for themselves or out for
Exactly.
money or.
And that's unfortunate. And that's in everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you
Everything.
can watch the news and see that everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's important to be discerning. So, what are some strategies to get involved with acupuncture, learn about it? Obviously, book a session,
Mm-hmm.
or just learn more about traditional Chinese medicine or
Sure.
anything you want to share.
Let's see. Well, there's a great book if you're really interested in Chinese medicine and learning more called The Web That Has No Weaver.
And we'll link to that in the show notes then.
Yeah, it's a great one. It's by Ted Kapchuk, and he's been someone in the complementary medical field at Harvard for a long time. And so that's a great way to kind of get more in-depth knowledge if you're interested. It's not that hard to find information on acupuncture nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of studies out there too. If you're interested in that, you can go to just Googling studies on acupuncture.
And a lot of hospitals are adding actual licensed acupuncturists into the healthcare setting. Mm-hmm. I've noticed that, and massage therapists.
Yes.
Which is wonderful.
It is
hospitals
wonderful.
Here in Indiana and across the nation.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, you can do things you've mentioned before, just, about the way you eat, singing, and things like that.
Yeah, just ways to incorporate, some Chinese medicine into your life. So, we look at nutrition as well in Chinese medicine. And so, for example, this time of year, it's fall time. So we want to, eat foods that are nourishing to the lungs. So eating pears, I usually suggest eating pears this time of year. Also, we don't like to eat too much cold food. So we say that, the stomach it has a fire, and its job is to turn everything into soup. Mm-hmm. So the closer it is to soup, the easier it is on your digestion. So the colder it is, the harder your stomach has to work, and then can get overtired if you're having a lot of cold food. So, take your salad out of the fridge a half hour before you're going to eat it. Mm-hmm. Have your water at room temperature. Mm-hmm. Things like, singing can really strengthen the stomach spleen system. Sing loud, sing strong when you're in your car, your shower, just to give a little bit of tonification. Mm-hmm. Let's see, what else? I mean, just looking for tender spots around your body. Mm-hmm. If you're feeling around your ankles, your Achilles, your inner legs, just looking for spots that, that's more tender than I expected. And then just giving a little bit of acupressure in that space can do a lot. So, you can self-treat at home just by, feeling around.
Well, and I introduced that into my yin yoga classes.
Oh, yeah.
If we're in a posture where we can feel our feet like pressing on the bottom of the feet or the arch or around the shins or whatnot.
Which yin yoga is a great time to do that. I mean, you're sitting in a pose for a minute, you might as well treat yourself.
Exactly. And in fact, I should do that even more and bring that in. And are there any things that you do daily that it incorporates Chinese medicine or weekly? It's probably become just a habit.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something that is a habit. I mean, I do a lot of cupping. I have a cupping set at home, so like my whole family, we cup each other, so cupping is just part of our lives. Um, Dry brushing, maybe.
Yes, I
Using
do that myself too.
Yeah, doing some lymphatic drainage that way.
It's so helpful. Yeah. Do you do it before the shower or in the shower?
Before. Or whenever I have a 1-year-old at home, so really whenever I have time.
Yes, of course. So you have to adapt. Well, any final thoughts you want to share about acupuncture, Chinese medicine, Taoism?
I just want to let people know that a lot of people are scared of needles, and it's really not the same. If you haven't had acupuncture and you've only had hypodermic needles inside of you, yeah, that hurts.
Yeah.
Acupuncture needles are not like that at all. They're not like your typical hypodermic needle. They're solid. They're tiny. They're like the size of your hair. And it doesn't hurt. It shouldn't hurt. If someone's doing acupuncture really hard on you and you don't like it, go find somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to hurt. Even Japanese acupuncture, they barely go under the skin. It's very gentle and light, and it still works. So you don't have to have this huge sensation with it. And it feels like a tiny tug. Like if I was to just take your arm hair and just tug.
Yeah.
Just a tiny tug, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And then it goes away. Sometimes there's a little ache with it, but generally it should not be painful.
Yes. Yes, I completely agree. And having experienced it from multiple practitioners, including yourself, and everybody seems to, depends where they're trained too, but it's always been very light. And if there is a point that is like, whoa, the practitioner usually is like, just let me know.
Yeah.
But
if there's one that feels a little pinchy, I'm going to change it. I'm going to take it out.
Yeah, because you can't settle and relax and calm the nervous system.
Right. If you're sitting there thinking.
But that is true. That's a big fear for people of the needles. And it's not a hypodermic needle blood draw sort of thing.
I almost wish it had a different name.
Yeah.
Because they're so small that I wish it wasn't called a needle, because people's associations with needles are so intense usually.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate you being on today.
Thank you for having me.
Sharing, what you've got going on and all your experience and all about Chinese medicine.
I wanted to also plug. I'm having a book published.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
I'm so glad you mentioned that.
It comes out April in 2019.
Yes.
And it is the acupuncture point function charts.
Okay.
And so when I was in grad school, I made these acupuncture charts in order to memorize all the functions of the points. And it turned out all my classmates wanted them, and it was just a really nice way to memorize, more condensed, concise. Yeah. It's kind of like the Cliff Notes for point functions. And so in the past few years, one of my colleagues said, he teaches at one of the schools, and said, I still have your charts, and the students are asking me about them. You should really do something with this. So I converted it into something a little bit more modern and accessible, because I had done them hand-drawn.
Sure.
And so it's just more professional looking now. So we found a publisher out of England, actually, and they have affiliates all over the world. So we're hoping to get it translated as well into other languages. So we're looking.
That's very exciting.
Forward to
so
that.
will it be like on Amazon or all over? All over. That's very exciting, and I'm glad you remembered that, because I forgot to mention it. And so I'll be looking forward to that, because I just like to know that too.
Yeah, I mean it's not just for acupuncturists. If people are interested in body work and acupressure or craniosacral work or
Yeah, I think I would really like that. When I was first taught Thai massage, it was actually using the Chinese meridians. And so that's where my brain goes, rather than the sin lines in Thai, because I learned those next. And then since I teach Yin, so there's all this cross stuff, and I have to remember what I'm working with.
I think that, Yin yoga practitioners are going to...
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Like that.
Awesome. Well, great, Erica. I appreciate you being on today and sharing. I know our listeners will value your story, learning more about acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, Taoism, and all of that, and especially our community here in Indianapolis, but worldwide for sure, and especially when the book comes out. And we'll link to all your clinics and all the information. So everybody listening, just know that we'll have that information as well as the book that she mentioned. So just a reminder, the episode's sponsored by my upcoming 8-week Wild Wisdom Yoga Therapy program beginning in January. If you're ready to try a new holistic approach to address the root cause of your chronic pain, anxiety, depression, or habitual patterns that you're ready to let go, and finally get back to living the life you desire, you'll want to join me for this incredible program using yoga, pranayama, meditation, and chakra balancing to align your mind, body, and spirit. Go to alyssafinnig.com/online program to learn more. And one last thing, are you subscribed to my podcast? If you're not, I encourage you to do so today so you're the first to hear when the next one's live. Just take a few minutes or a few seconds, hit the subscribe button on your phone, or go to alyssafinnig.com/podcast and make sure you get on the email list to get notified when a new episode is available every Thursday. I cannot wait to see you again, same time, same place next week. Wild blessings.